Okay, so I was just kind of talking about the legacy, right, that we see of Europe being in the non-European world is what I'm kind of trying to stress at. And you know, I want to read something that might be a little disturbing. People always talk about, oh, a particular political leader is like Hitler, um, but a lot of times what's not discussed is what was inspired or influenced Hitler himself. And so I just want to read a passage from Mein Kampf from his book where he says, on page 286 of the Ralph Mannheim translation that I have, he says, historical experience offers countless proofs of this. It shows with terrifying clarity that in every mingling of Aryan blood with that of lower peoples, the result was the end of the cultured people. North America, whose population consists in by far the largest part of Germanic elements, who mixed but little with the lower colored peoples, shows a different humanity and culture from Central and, and South America, where the predominantly Latin immigrants often mixed with the Aborigines on a large scale. By this one example, we can clearly and distinctly recognize the effect of racial mixture. The Germanic inhabitant of the American continent, who has remained racially pure and unmixed, rose to be master of the continent. He will remain the master as long as he does not fall a victim to defilement of the blood. Okay, this is what Hitler said. So let's make this clear. What's he saying? Hitler's inspired by, I'm going to use the word because we have to be real, the Holocaust of native peoples, and the displacement that at the expense of the Anglo-Saxons or the white Germanic Europeans. I teach U.S. history as well, and it's absolutely after the Civil War we finalized consolidating all this land by finishing off any kind of Native American resistance, and we killed families. I mean, it was a very we took the land by force. Now, look, this is just a fact that we can't get around. Now, how we should feel about ourselves as Americans now and what that should mean for us is going to vary from person to person, okay? And what I'm trying to do is not make this let's all hate white Europeans now lecture or a section. But I do think it's fair that we should mention that for white Americans and for white Europeans, we've had the issue of supremacy, of political and ethnic supremacy being a part of our dialogue, our education, and our political systems for a very long time. And now that people of color are actually in the university systems and kind of contributing to their own thoughts about the Western legacy and the European legacy, and as more of these nations that Europe cracked open are being integrated as immigrants, refugees, or just cheap labor that have been used over several decades in European countries, now we're finding this kind of really sending shockwaves to the old world order. Okay, and I think that basically it's a very important thing for us to grasp this legacy as we go in, because I think it'll help us have a more fruitful discussion about race relations and ethnic relations now, and that we can all start taking responsibility and look at like, well, how did this really happen? Like, what are some of the factors that have caused us to get in this place? So I just wanted to kind of stimulate that. Here, just to briefly look at also the way that racial issues within even Latin America have been played out due to the Spanish and French colonization of this hemisphere. I'm just going to briefly show this, okay, right here. So
It's market day in Dajabon, here on the Massacre River, which separates Haiti and the Dominican Republic. The border hasn't opened yet, but hundreds of Haitians try to beat the clock to set up their stalls first, over here on the Dominican side. Finally, it's 8 a.m., official opening time. The ancestors of the Haitians and the Dominicans have shared the island of Hispaniola for 5 centuries. This was the first place in the New World to import Africans as slaves. The island is the birthplace of the Black experience in the Americas. But standing here on the Dominican side of the border, the differences between the two countries couldn't be clearer. It's 8 o'clock on market day on this side of the river, 7 o'clock over there. They speak Spanish on this side of the river. They speak Creole over there. The people on this side of the river are proud to be part of a mixed-race society. There, they're proud to be Black. Haitians and Dominicans have had many conflicts over the years. This river was the site of one of the worst massacres in the history of the Caribbean. And I'm here to discover how all this came about. Place here in the heart.
We feel it is ours.
So he just talked about merengue, and I love a merengue, a mixture of African and Spanish culture. And I just want to get to this one other
Merengue is
section.
the life, the soul of the people. Santo Domingo feels unmistakably Spanish. Founded in 1496 by Christopher Columbus's older brother Bartholomew, the city was the first seat of Spanish colonial rule in all of the Americas. Dominicans are especially proud of that Spanish heritage. In Columbus Square, opposite the first cathedral in the Americas, sits a monument to the man who first colonized this island. Christopher Columbus certainly has pride of place here in the heart of Santo Domingo, and it says something about the country's sense of itself. Spanish, Catholic, and if not exactly white, then most certainly not Black either. I'm curious why there are no statues of famous Black heroes here, even though 90% of the Dominicans are Afro-descendants. How do Dominicans see their African heritage, their Blackness? Juan Rodriguez, an anthropologist, works for the Ministry of Culture as its Director of Cultural Diversity. How would people describe you, given your beautiful mahogany color?
Well, here I am as Indio.
Indio.
I'm supposed to be Indio here.
Help me to understand, as an American, I've never heard of this phrase, Indio. Where does it come from?
Well, by the 19th century, we didn't have any native indigenous people
No.
like in South America, so it didn't apply to us. But it was a way to use the word Indio to actually negate our African ancestry and then became something else, because when you look at Dominicans, we cannot say, honestly, that we are Anglo-Saxon. If you look around, I mean, look at me. I am Black.
You're Black. Did you feel this way, Juan, when you were growing up, or did you have to learn that you were Black?
Actually, and I am sad to say, I had to learn to be Black.
How did you learn?
Well, I went to New York as most Dominican, and all of a sudden I felt that my roots were in Africa, not in Spain like here. Even today, everybody said the motherland here is Spain.
So who's Black in Dominican society? In America, all these people would be Black. But here, who's Black?
Well,
Negro. Who's Negro?
I think nobody's Negro here. If we are told you are black, oh no, I'm not black. I am something else. Dominicans are in complete denial of who they are.
Okay, I just thought that was important. I wanted you guys to see this. My daughter's grandmother is from Haiti, and while most Haitians are more conscious now of their African ancestry, she also refuses to be associated with Africa. The French and the Spanish left a legacy on racial identity for black people of black African descent that still creates this perplexing dialogue that we just watched. So I guess what I want to show is that this chapter that we're going over in 13 and some of the discussions and the way that Western society, for me as a person of European descent, of white European descent, and I'm sure for many of you as well who have the same kind of background, we study Western civilization and we can feel ourselves in it somehow, right? Maybe like more aware of our ancestors. I mean, I'm taking Swedish now, looking into my own family roots on one branch. I've been studying Scotland and Germany and France and Ireland and these places that many of us come from. And so, it's easy to say, oh, wow, we see ourselves in this. But then what about people of mixed ancestry like my daughter with Filipino and Haitian, and then all of my European cultures are? What about people of color and what they study in this class, and then this chapter that we're going over and how that's affected so many non-white European English-speaking people on this side of the continent? And I find it kind of amazing if we think that this is strange to have these black, what most Americans would call black Spanish-speaking people from Dominican Republic confused or denying of their blackness. I mean, think about how little consciousness that we have in the United States about what our origins are and how they happened and what this really means in terms of our relationship to the rest of this continent. America, United States' relationship to Mexico, to Canada, to Central America and South America, right? I mean, how many Americans are really conscious of this development and what this all means? And so what I'm just hoping as you watch the rest of these just documentary clips that I'm going to have you watch, that you really stop and take some deep thought about the current conflicts that we're seeing now and how the origins of it all start here and what that really means. Ultimately what that means is going to be different for each person, but I think that if we're conscious of this, again, I kind of repeated myself, but I think it'll make you a more insightful person right now. So I'm going to end this here and then put on the documentary clips.